The phone vibrated against the lacquered surface of the desk, its dull buzz cutting through the silence of the room. Nathaniel Pierce, 38 years old and founder of one of the country's most powerful private equity firms, barely looked up from the acquisition paperwork he had been reviewing for hours. But something about the unknown number on the screen caught his attention. Normally, he wouldn't have answered. Most unknown numbers were either reporters or someone wanting a piece of his time or money. But on that particular gray afternoon, maybe out of boredom or something deeper he couldn't he picked it up. "This is Nathaniel Pierce. Dad? Is that you?" The voice on the other end was small. Frightened. "A child. I need you to come get me." The teacher said mommy's in the hospital. Nathaniel froze. His mind, trained to decode market trends and take down billion-dollar companies with surgical precision, came to a complete stop at that one word. "Dad." He blinked. "Who is this?" There was a pause. Then, "It's me. My name's Mateo. I'm 6. My teacher, Miss Jenkins, said we could call. Mommy didn't pick me up. She's sick." A shiver ran through Nathaniel's spine. The name rolled over his thoughts like a wave he wasn't ready for. Mateo. And then, as if summoned by ghosts, an old name surfaced. Amara. 6 years ago. Paris. Those endless nights filled with cheap champagne and long conversations about books and life. 3 passionate months before she disappeared without a word. Mateo. The math added up too perfectly. A tremble ran down his fingers, and the crystal glass of whiskey slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. The boy gave him the address of the school, recited carefully from memory with the help of his teacher. Nathaniel stood up, already grabbing his coat, his keys. His limbs moved automatically, but his mind was a storm. Father. He was a father? As he pulled out of the garage in his black Bentley, knuckles white from gripping the wheel, his world shifted under him. Not since his earliest startup acquisition had anything ever made him feel so out of control. Images of Amara filled his thoughts, her laugh, the way she tilted her head when she was deep in thought, the little emerald pendant she always wore. How had she kept something like this from him? The answer arrived unbidden. His father. 6 years ago, Nathaniel had gotten a call in the middle of the night. "It's time to end this distraction," Robert Pierce had said coldly. "Your mother and I will not accept a waitress in the family. It's been handled." He remembered the way Amara had vanished the very next day. No explanation. No trace. Now, all these years later, her absence had a name. Mateo. He spotted the school as he turned the final corner. A modest red brick building surrounded by cheerful murals and swings. A place where children were meant to feel safe. But nothing about today felt safe. On a red bench near the entrance sat a small boy with a Spider-Man backpack. Standing beside him, a young woman, probably Miss Jenkins, rested a gentle hand on his shoulder. Nathaniel parked the car and got out, his legs unsteady. As he walked closer, the boy looked up, and the world tilted. It was like staring into a mirror. Mateo had the same dark, intense eyes, the same shape of jaw, even a faint scar near his right brow, one old family trait. But there was something else. Mateo's skin, a beautiful shade of brown, his hair curled tight at the crown. It was unmistakable. This boy was his. "Dad?" Mateo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Nathaniel crouched down slowly, his throat tightening. Mato." The boy stared at him for a beat longer. Then, suddenly, he launched forward and wrapped his arms around Nathaniel's legs. Nathaniel froze, then dropped to his knees and returned the hug, his arms wrapped gently but firmly around the boy who was his son. Miss Jenkins explained what had happened. Amara had collapsed that morning and was rushed to St. Vincent's Medical Center. Before losing consciousness, she had told a neighbor to look in a box in the closet marked important. Inside was Nathaniel's old business card. On the drive to the hospital, Mateo talked about his mom, his friends, his favorite cartoons. Every word chipped away at the carefully constructed version of Nathaniel's life. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the boy hugging his backpack, worry etched on his small face. At the hospital, a doctor met them at the entrance. "Mr. Pierce?" I am Dr. Harlow. You must be Mateo's father. His mother is in critical condition. She has advanced leukemia. We're doing everything we can, but we'll need a bone marrow transplant. Nathaniel didn't hesitate. I'll do whatever it takes. Dr. Harlow hesitated. The best chance is a first-degree relative. But legally, there's no registered father. We'll need documentation. I'm his father, Nathaniel said. I'll get the papers. He called Elise Thorne, his longtime attorney. Within an hour, she was in the hospital lobby, elegant in a gray suit, already preparing a fast-track court motion for emergency paternity confirmation. DNA tests were expedited, as if there were ever a doubt. Later that night, he was led into Amara's hospital room. She was barely recognizable, her skin pale, her body thin, sustained by machines. A nurse handed him a worn envelope. Inside was a letter and pictures of Mateo as a baby. When your father offered me money to disappear, I knew I had no chance. Not in your world. Not when your own mother said my baby would never be welcome. I ran because I loved him, and because I loved you. But I couldn't bear to be hated by the people you loved. Nathaniel's heart shattered. The DNA test returned a match. The judge signed the paperwork. Mateo was officially his son. That night, Nathaniel brought him to the penthouse. Mateo marveled at the view. Is this where you live, Dad? Yeah, but we'll make it more fun. While heating up dinner, Nathaniel's phone rang. It was his father. So it's true, Robert Pierce said coldly. You've acknowledged that child. That child, Nathaniel replied evenly, is my son. And your grandson. You realize what this does to the company. I'm thinking about family. Robert's voice turned colder. And what will the shareholders think when they find out the heir is a black boy? Nathaniel interrupted. Finish the sentence. Go on. Silence. We're calling an emergency board meeting, Robert said finally. Good. I'll be there. After Mateo went to bed, Nathaniel made 3 calls. To Elise, asking her to Darian Wu, his CFO, and to Marcy Whitman, an award-winning investigative journalist. The transplant procedure the next day went smoothly. Mateo was brave, quietly squeezing Nathaniel's hand through every step. That afternoon, Darian sent a message. Check your father's private safe. I found something. Nathaniel met him at the office. In the folder were records of surveillance, payments to private investigators, transcripts of intercepted calls from Amara. His parents had blocked every attempt she made to contact him. They hadn't just erased a woman. They'd erased a child. The following morning, the boardroom was full. Robert and his wife, Evelyn, sat at the head of the table, unreadable. When Nathaniel entered, he brought Elise, Darian, and Marcy. This is a private meeting, Robert snapped. No, this is my meeting, Nathaniel said, setting down a laptop. And these are the people who will help set the record straight. He projected the first image payment records for surveillance on Amara, then intercepted phone logs, then emails resist vile damning. You knew, he said to the room, and you did nothing. Worse, you caused it. Victoria tried to speak, but Nathaniel cut her off. You erased my son. You let the mother of your grandchild suffer alone. He laid out his plan. 30% of annual profits redirected to a foundation for marginalized youth. Corporate reform. Transparency. Rebuilding with purpose. Robert pounded the table. This is absurd. Already approved, Darian said. 62% of shareholders are on board. More documents followed. Personal emails. Admissions. Racist comments about impure blood. Robert paled. Here's your resignation, Nathaniel said, sliding a form across the table. Both of you. Step down, or the press gets everything. They signed. Afterward, Nathaniel returned to the hospital, where Mateo was drawing. What's that? He asked. Our family, Mateo said. For Mommy. So she knows we're all here. Nathaniel smiled through tears. Weeks later, the company announced its new initiatives. The Miguel Pierce Foundation launched to great media attention. Scholarships, mentorship, change. At a press conference, Nathaniel, Amarera covering and Mateo, stood hand in hand. We're not here just to tell a story, Nathaniel said. We're here to build a future. Later that month, Robert called for the first time. He wanted to meet Matteo. They met in a quiet park. Matteo brought a chess set. Dad says I'm getting good. Robert, for once, didn't have a retort. Just a silent nod. A year passed. Amara fully recovered. The family moved into a home with a garden. Matteo learned to ride a bike. Nathaniel learned to be a father. Not everything was forgiven, but the legacy of hate had ended, and in its place something new had begun.